We don't lose
But
exhibitions anymore.
we don't lose exhibitions. We scored 100 in every game. Welcome in, everybody. It's Roman Kelly and Jay Cook here for Starting 502 podcast. We're going to be talking to you all today about, of course, Pat Kelsey and Louisville basketball's first outing at the Yum Center against Young Harris. We're going to get into a breakdown of what we feel about what we saw, critique some things, give our critique on some things, and get into a couple more player breakdowns for you all as well. Jake, how have you been?
I'm good. Feels wrong, like we're cheating on Presley or something, but I
It
kind of like
does.
it. It feels a little dirty.
It feels weird being in the position without Presley. He's normally operating the show for us, guiding things for us. But he had some personal matters to attend to. He'll be back with us very, 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 very soon.
He got
But yeah,
circumcised, everybody. A 32-year-old adult circumcision is what's keeping him out of this podcast this week.
that's funny. That is. But you got to do what you got to do, right?
Better late than never.
Yeah. Jake, it's been a minute. It's been a few days, been a handful of days. No recruiting tidbits since the last time we've spoken, really. But that's part of it. Takes time with that kind of stuff. It's the start of season. So, plus, I think the Louisville recruiting, I'm going to touch on this just before we get into things because it's not something that's going to be talked about much on this episode. But we're going to have to play some games. And then I think we'll start seeing some more names come in about who's interested, who we're interested in, and who's got us on their list and things of that nature. It'll just take a little bit of time. Not worried yet.
Yeah, I think
But nothing new.
all the guys that we were talking about a couple episodes ago, like Shelton Henderson, Caden Magwood, JJ Mandakeet, all those guys are still there's no news that's came out in a bad way. It just hasn't came out that they're choosing
nothing
Louisville
new
or anything
is
like
why.
that.
Yeah, it'd be the same kind of conversation. So no new need to really go into that. But Jake, we're gonna get right into it. We're without Presley, but we do have a very it's the start of the Pat Kelsey era. We've gotten to see the first outing. A lot of different good things we got to see. I got to make it down to Yum Center and see firsthand. It was actually my second ever Louisville basketball game at Yum Center. I hate to even say that out loud, but that's how it is. Got to see my first game last year in the KP era. Weirdly, it was a win, but this was a whole different experience. Even in preseason, this is an exhibition. There was only 10,000, a little over 10,000 people attendance recorded. And it was still moments of electricity. So we're going to get into that. We're going to break that down. And yeah, we're going to break down a couple more players for you guys after that.
Were we even getting 10,000 people at the end of the regular season last year?
We were not.
The numbers,
dude.
The numbers did not look that much different in this exhibition game compared to last year.
We really weren't. I've got it pulled up here. I have a picture of the stat sheet. I've got the exact number. I want to say it was like 10,000. We had 10,928 total attendance. And I swear, I don't think we cracked 8,000 for like our last handful of home games that second season, last season. Understandably so. Very, very understandably so. But things have changed. Things are different now. And I'm excited, Jake. I'm very, very excited for what we saw. Louisville got the win against Young Harris. We'll just get right into it. 106-59. 47-point victory. Jake, we're going to break down pretty much every aspect of this game, but what are your first initial thoughts, the first few things that you saw that stuck out to you the most in this first Pat Kelsey performance at Yum Center?
I think all of the positives that we saw in the Bahamas transitioned right into this first exhibition game. So I think that was good because we were all so excited to see that, and just nice to see consistency, that it wasn't just a 2-game fluke, or it wasn't that the competition was just horrid in the Bahamas. Not that Young Harris is some incredible team, but just nice to see that this team has an identity and has an understanding of how to play together, and it wasn't just a fluke that happened in the summer. So I loved that. God, did we shoot a lot of threes? 56 three-pointers attempted. I know we're not going to shoot that many threes. No one shoots that many threes on average, but it was entertaining to see. Everybody on the floor has a green light. Like, even Kader Traore shot a three. Like everyone is willing to shoot a three, I think, besides Frank Gonsalves. That's the only dude who I think probably would get benched if he shot a three.
Yeah. A lot of three-pointers. 24 made threes, which from what I've heard, I think would be a Louisville record if this wasn't an exhibition game.
Mm-hmm.
And you like you said, this is not going to be normal. We're going to be a three-point shooting team. We're going to have a heavy volume of threes pretty much most games, but this 56 attempted three-pointers is not going to that's insane. And on top of that, like Young Harris is a solid D2 team, 17-12 last year. A couple players on that roster who probably are D1 caliber guys. I think we saw that their big man was all over the place off the pick and roll, off the catch from the pick and roll. But at the same time, you also saw that the way that they operated, this was a D2 team. They didn't have a lot of athletes across the board. We were just, you could see it when you line these guys up. But that being said, offensively, the way we performed, Jake, it's the signs of very good things to come. And yes, I think one of the main things you wanted to see, if there was any priority, right, I think you wanted to see just everything you did see carry over. You didn't want to see a decline in anything you saw in those first two Bahama games, which I don't think anybody was really worried about. But that was like the only I wanted to see a carryover in the intensity, the pressure, the cohesiveness on offense, right? We saw all that. You were probably hoping, as basketball heads for us, like me and you, hoping to see improvements even on those things as guys who can nitpick even the good stuff. We wanted to see it get even a little bit better, faster, right? Get back in transition even faster. Just a couple things you could have nitpicked on from the Bahamas. We wanted to see that, and we did in some ways. Second half got a little bit shaky at the start, but we'll get into that. Now, you didn't make it down to the game, though, right?
I did not. It's a 2-hour drive for me, so it's a little tougher.
For Monday exhibition, kind of. I get that. We'll have to get you down for Tennessee, though.
Please.
Definitely. One thing I do want to get into that I saw, and I mentioned this on the radio a few days or yesterday, but the coaches and how assertive they were being at every dead ball, every timeout was, at this point, it's relieving. I was shocked seeing it in live time because Louisville basketball was so far removed from the guys in control of what is being put out on the floor being involved, right? And the fans being able to see that at games. Our assistant coaches didn't stand up. Our assistant coaches didn't talk a whole lot during timeouts, right? They said a little word or two to each player, right? Nolan Smith would do his little thing and stuff, but there was not full-on conversations every time coaches had the chance to be. And when you look at the best teams in college basketball and you look at the best teams over the last couple of years in college basketball, you look at UConn, right? The whole coaching staff is involved with the coaching process during games. And it was really, really relieving to see that. It was shocking in live time, but it was relieving at the end of the day. That was one of the biggest things that stood out there for me. And then, like you said, just every player, if the set allowed for it, was allowed to take if it was a good shot, anyone was allowed to take it. There wasn't really a bad three in the eyes of the players out there. If you really watched them, right? They were getting the open looks, but there wasn't any guys open and not taking open threes. There was none of that. And the amount of open threes we were creating was just shocking. It was shocking. At halftime, we have an 18-1 assist ratio. Tell me about that. How'd you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, the first half was, you couldn't have asked for much better. Like you said, the
I was
second
feeling
half,
myself. I was feeling myself at the end of that first half.
Yeah, my fiance is not used to me being a positive Louisville basketball fan. I think all she thinks is that I'm negative because for the last 2 years, that's all it's been. And she was texting me, and I was like, "We're incredible. We're amazing. It's the greatest basketball team I've ever seen in my life." But yeah, so many good open looks. And one thing I think a lot of people were concerned about was just the sheer amount of 3-pointers. I mean, 56 is a ton, but if you watch that game, Young Harris was packing the lane on defense. Like, it
Yeah.
was clear that the coaching staff for Young Harris said, let them shoot as many threes as they want. They will not. Because I think that, I mean, and it's not a bad idea if you know you're athletically and your talent is overmatched to just not let them beat you to the rack, let them shoot threes, and maybe they have an off shooting night and you get to keep it closer. So I just don't want people to freak out that like we're gonna be shooting 45, 50 threes a game, because I think Georgetown was like leading in the NCAA last year and they shot 32 a game, which I would not be surprised if we shot more than 32, but 56 is nowhere near it. And I think you're right. The coaching staff, the bench energy as well, it all kind of stands out. I feel like last year we had fucking Danny Manning asleep on the sideline and we had Aiden McCool standing up. Like, that was our bench. We had him sleeping and one guy cheering. And now this year you've got every single player is into it. Every single player is talking as soon as a timeout happens, a three is hit, a dunk is made, and you've got coaches individually teaching on the sideline in between breaks. So it's completely different culturally in every single way.
Major culture shift.
Yeah, I didn't love that we started to lose a little bit of focus in the second half, but you're up 35 at halftime on a D2 team. I do understand how it can happen.
Yeah, it's hard to keep your focus when you've got a lead like that on your home floor. You're trying to go out there and showcase what your team can do. You're getting a little bit less, how do you say it? You know, you're not as concentrated on the task at hand here, which is trying to play as perfectly as possible. But they were playing a form of, they were trying to limit any layups, right? They were probably trying to prevent fouls as well, and they did a good job of those two things. It just, we were making the threes. 6 guys shot 5+ 3-pointers. 6 guys shot 5+ 3-pointers, right? That, granted, when a 56 3-point attempt outing, that's what you would expect, but it's just not normal. While we won't shoot that many, and we might not even be in that, we might not get 32 threes a game, I do think we will have more games where we shoot more threes than 2-point attempts. I think there will be more games that we have more 3-point attempts than 2-point attempts. It won't be by a wide margin every game like this one was, but that is going to be part of the Pat Kelsey offense. He wants to get a lot of threes up. He wants to get a lot of open shots up and just more possessions per game than the average team does get, partially because of offensive rebounds as well. He likes to crash the offensive glass. But is there anything else that stood out to you in this performance, on the court, off the court? Did any sets out there surprise you?
Not really. I mean, I think I loved the balance. I think we know that this team is balanced. I think one thing that we unfortunately had to rely upon to be competitive at all last year was like 1 or 2 guys going off, like Trey White drops 25 or Sky Clark decides to be able to shoot threes and he scores 30. Like, those are really the only 2 ways that we were competitive in some of our ACC games. And I think it was just nice to see something that we already thought was going to happen, but 50 points from starters, 56 points from the bench, 4 dudes in double digits, 8 guys with at least 6 points. Like, it's very nice to know that we don't have to have Sky Clark go crazy. We don't have to have Brandon Huntley Hatfield go crazy. Like, we've got Javon Hadley who can go off. We've got Corin Johnson that can go off. We've got Terrence Edwards. Like, anybody, probably any 3 to 4 guys every night are going to have a good game. And 2 or 3 probably won't have a great night. Like, Kason Pryor didn't have a great night last night, but almost everybody else in the team did. And that's how you're going to be competitive in every single game, especially as we get into the ACC schedule, not having to rely upon 1 or 2 dudes to be a star every single night, because that just doesn't happen for 99% of college basketball players.
But when you have this many guys who are bringing multiple things to the table, that's less of an issue. That will become less of an issue for you. When you've got a great balance. That's a great point there, and that was on display Monday night for sure. The cohesiveness, the ball movement, the motion, it was constant motion, constant screen setting, constant communication on offense and defense, right? That was another thing I pointed out earlier or yesterday, was the players off ball offensively were communicating and pointing where the ball's supposed to go. Everyone is in tune, at least offensively, right? Defensively, there were some things that you could tell they're still figuring it out, but offensively, everyone knows where the ball's supposed to be. Everyone kind of seems to know where every player is supposed to be as well. And that's just something you can't, to even on October 22nd, to have that and to feel confident that is a elite level cohesiveness. It's a great feeling for me personally.
Yeah, I
When
love
you have this many new players.
Yeah. Keep going. You're good. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying when you have this many new players, it's a great, great sign at the start of your season to have this because there's teams who have guys returning half their team who won't have a cohesiveness like this at the start of the season.
Yeah, I agree. The offensive cohesiveness is, I mean, better than I think I could have dreamt of whenever this roster was announced at any point. The defense, I do think, was a little concerning. We stayed in the man-to-man, the pack line. We're very up in the passing lanes. But one thing that concerned me was just it felt like we were allowing one-on-one drives to the basket without really any help side defense a lot. And I don't know if that was just like maybe Coach Kelsey knew they had a lot of great shooters, and he's like, don't get off of them. We'll let them try and beat us one-on-one. We're confident in our on-ball defense. But it just felt like there was 10, 15 times in the game where a dude kind of got a little isolated matchup, and the guy on Young Harris is like, okay, I'm taking this. And he gets into the paint, and there's really nobody helping, or there's someone helping, but it's too late. So
Yeah,
that concerned me because you can't give up one-on-one straight line drives to the basket to D1 high-level competition, or else you're going to end up giving up 90 a game.
very true. Very true. I do think that the way that Young Harris tries to conduct their offense is that's what they want to try to achieve. They're looking for the isolated matchups pretty much throughout their whole offensive scheme, which kind of weird to me, but that's what they were trying to do, and they did it. And they had a couple guys who they were creating issues when they made it into the lane. That's not like you said. You have your help side defense has to be in tune. It has to be on the same page with each other, and you have to try to prevent that at all costs because there's certain teams that they'll kill you, right? If you let them get into the paint with such ease like that, or we'll kill ourselves with fouls, which is going to lead me into my first point about something that I have to critique or something that I thought was maybe, I'm not going to call it bad, but I am worried about our interior defense with our bigs.
Mm-hmm.
Case Pryor and James Scott aren't big enough. And Noah Waterman isn't fast enough. And Frank Anthony isn't going to play enough. So I'm worried that when we play those teams who are going to pound the paint on us and try to get their big men, open for those lobs or open on rolls and stuff, on quick drives and pick and rolls and stuff. Case Pryor, he had two or three not bad fouls, but fouls where he was out of position because of how quickly his man got into the lane, gave him one shoulder, went up, and you missed time to contest underneath the basket, and it's a foul. And that's a D2 center, right, off of a basic pick and roll. That's going to worry me, right? Preventing players getting good positioning underneath the basket and then us not having the defenders to contest without fouling or blocking enough shots. Because James Scott, he's super, super long. He's got a long wingspan, and he's super athletic, and he has good timing. He's also not very big at all, though. He doesn't weigh a whole lot. I don't know if the accurate listed weight I think it was 225 or 230. I don't think that's very accurate. I just one thing that I noticed that if Young Harris was having on a couple different pick and rolls such ease getting their big man the ball under the basket, there's going to be some teams that are going to try to take advantage of that, right? Try to take advantage of what they believe in the matchup with Case Pryor and what he's going to be able to do with defense on the block, right? Because he's just not that heavy of a body. He's a scrappy defender. He's got good timing. He's smart. He's got good defensive IQ even. And he's got active hands too, right? There's going to be big men who aren't prepared for that. But just good old traditional back to the basket defense that's, or a player catching the ball with a little bit of a head of steam and momentum. If our help defense is going to look like that, that is going to be something that worries me. I might be nitpicking too hard on that though. Am I? Did you see that? I mean, I can only think of like three certain moments where I watched Kaysen let the player catch the ball with too much space on the roll, take one dribble, put his shoulder into him. Like there was two moments I think where I know for certain what was like Kaysen that was bad defense. And then one play with Noah where he wasn't in the. He just switched a little bit too late and didn't shuffle his feet really quick enough. I believe he got the foul called on him. That's I'm just nitpicking, right? It's a 47-point victory. Not everything is going to be perfect. Not everything's going to be perfect against the good teams either. It's not going to be perfect any game of the year. But on October 22nd against the D2 opponent, seeing it more than once, even more than twice, I'm noticing it. I'm pointing it out. But help me out here, Jake. calm me down. Let me know if I'm going crazy. Let me know if I'm nitpicking too hard on that. You're a basketball mind. You were critiquing the game. What did you see defensively?
No, I agree with you. Straight line drives and interior physicality, I think, are two things that stood out. And it is concerning that those are two things that stand out against a D2 team. If it was, I don't know, something that didn't rely so much on strength and athleticism that you know is only going to improve in your matchups as the seasons go on, maybe it wouldn't be as worrisome. But I think there is a legitimate point there. I'm watching the games and I'm literally just thinking, like, oh God, we play Indiana and they have Omar Ballo. Like, Omar Ballo is 60 pounds and 4 inches taller than anybody that was on the floor for Young Harris last night, or 2 nights ago now. So it does concern me. I think in games like that where you do have a heavier post interior player that you're having to go against, I think that you probably will see a little bit more Frank Anselmi. I think you might just have to, and it probably won't be 25 minutes, but it might be 12 instead of 4.
Yeah, you're coming in and just telling them be aggressive. We don't care if you foul even.
Yeah.
Just making it rough on Omar. Like, yeah, you're right. I didn't really think about that. He's going to have to play a little bit extra minutes on those more dominant kind of bigs. Sorry to
Yeah,
interrupt
and
you there, though.
no, you're good. And I think what you're hoping for is that the advantages that Kaysen, Noah, James Scott give us offensively are offset by the deficiencies that they have on defense. So yes, they give up 14 paint points to Umar Ballo, but Kaysen hits 3 threes and drives past him twice and gets 2 assists, and so it kind of
Gets a steal or
itself
two off of him
out.
as well.
Yeah. So that's what you're hoping for. Other thing that I noticed, gave up 12 offensive rebounds, which isn't really like a staggeringly high number, but against a smaller D2 team, I think it's something that I noticed, and it stood out to me while I was watching the game, and then I saw it in the stats, and I was like, 12 is kind of a lot. Like,
Kind of
this
a
feels like a
lot.
team that should maybe have gotten like 5 or 6, because you'll get some lucky long rebounds or tip outs or something like that. But there were enough moments where I was like, damn, another offensive rebound.
Yeah,
And I think I
double-digit
noticed it
offensive
more.
rebounds is.
Yeah, I think I
Sorry
noticed
about
it
that.
more in the second half. No, you're good. I think I noticed it more in the second half, which again, we talked about the concentration seemed to fall off just a hair. So hoping there was just a little bit lack of concentration, not fully boxing out, not going as hard to that defensive rebound to finish out a possession. Because in the first half, I didn't notice it nearly as much. So I'm hoping that was just a little lack of concentration.
Yeah, I think it is. That's most of what that's going to constitute is just you take take your foot off the gas in the second half.
Mm.
I'd like to go look at the numbers to be certain. I just don't think that majority of those offensive rebounds. I don't think the majority of those came in the first half. But yeah, they had one player, the Cameron Blashoy kid. He had 5.
Mm-hmm.
So you giving up 5 offensive rebounds to one guy. There's going to be those athletic wing or bigs who play a little bit bigger than they even are, right? Who are going to just be those athletic Aboubacar, Traore kind of players who are going to purposely be that one guy on the other team who attacks the offensive glass. And you have to be ready for that. 12
Mm-hmm.
against a team like that is, I'm not nitpicking there. That's unacceptable against anybody. There's just a level of defense, discipline you have to have on defensive rebound. You grab a man, and you prevent him from getting the ball. But don't look at the film. Don't look at those. That it being one player and not being 5 guys with one, one guy with 2. That's a little bit better for me. But you have to
Mm-hmm.
go figure out why that one player was able to exploit you for 5 offensive rebounds and figure out what it is to prevent that. Yeah,
Yeah,
that was a little bit tough.
I agree. I
And
think
then yeah,
one thing I wanted to touch on, to move back just to the positive at the very end. We talked about the ball movement was great, but one of my fears watching the Charleston team with the speed in which they played was just the amount of turnovers that I thought would logically come from playing at that fast of a pace. But in
yes.
the 3 games so far that we've seen, it really hasn't. I think you said, was it 18 assists to 1 turnover in the first half?
At halftime, yeah, 18-1, dude. And that was like
Yeah,
20 made field goals.
Yeah, and so yeah, we ended with just a little less than a 2.5 assist to turnover ratio. UConn led the NCAA last year with 1.93. So I mean, we're not going to do that every game, but that's record-setting assist turnover ratio. And so I was just impressed. I mean, obviously last year I think we were like 300th in the nation in assist to turnover ratio.
Yeah, it was
So
bad.
it just looks so drastically different. And it's super impressive to me that we're able to move the ball so quickly and push in transition and not really turn the ball over as much as I thought we might with this kind of style.
I do hope, like, just goofy me wonders, like, is that a Pat Kelsey thing at Charleston last year because of the players, and now he has this many experienced guys, and it's going to be something we're going to have to worry about in the future? Because there are the moments where a set gets a little bit sloppier than it should, like a pass gets taken lower than it should, and then there's almost a potential for a 50-50 ball until we retain possession again. Little stuff like that happened a little bit. Case in Pryor putting the ball on the deck after a pump fake, and he bites on the defender bites on the pump fake. You put the ball down and you let him get a tap on the ball on his closeout, right? And now the ball's hitting your leg and you're having to go run after it, and just little things like that you saw even against Young Harris, where it didn't lead to a turnover every time, but you saw that play almost got a little sloppy, and then it still ended in a made three. But you could tell just how quickly they want to play and how everybody knows that the ball has to keep constantly moving. That can lead to turnovers. You have to have guys with experience, have to have high basketball IQ guys, and this roster I do know has a high basketball IQ all around. So I just hope that is something that he continues to try to bring in and recruits look going forward and transfers. Not to nitpick something about the kind of players we've got, but we have a very experienced roster this year, and that definitely helps prevent turnovers. Guys like Chucky Hepburn, he had one of the best assist to turnover ratios if not the best in the Big Ten last year, I want to say. But that was another factor that I want to, we're going to Morehead State. I want that one to carry over against Morehead State and even Tennessee. I don't want to start seeing the ball turnover against some real athletes. Not to say Morehead State isn't, but some high level, going to be ranked all year, kind of going to be potential tournament level athletes. I don't want to see the ball start turning over then. So I want to see that carry over into every game because it's been good. It's been good the two games in the Bahamas and against Young Harris. I don't have a very, very many things that I had to nitpick on offensively. Hardly at all. Mm-hmm. You see the miss, Terrence Edwards, he had the 2 air balls. Case and Pryor went 1 for 8, I believe, right?
Yeah.
And you still don't feel like either one of them had a bad game, really. Like, he had an bad shooting night, but Case and Pryor still made he made the right play. He made the extra pass when he needed to make it. He took his open 3 when he had it, which is what you want. Now, if he goes, bad shooting multiple nights in a row on open 3s, then there's a conversation to be had about that. But I haven't seen that yet. He shot great in the Bahamas. Reyne Smith, man.
There's the rain we were looking for in the Bahamas.
Shooter. What do you go, 6 for 8 from 3? 20 points?
7 for 9.
7 for 9 from 3.
6 for 8, I'm sorry. Yeah, that math doesn't even math. You're right.
7,
I was looking at field goals. Yeah, 7 for 9 for field goals, 6 for 8 on 3s. Yeah.
Okay. Shooter, shoot, and he kept on shooting, and he started. They're going to continue to fall. He is. I fear he might be by far the best shooter on the team. I feel like there's guys that we think are good shooters, and they are good shooters, but we want them to be great shooters, and they're not going to be. But I'm not sure yet. Noah Waterman can really shoot the lights out, but how consistent is he as a shooter? Does he always take the right shot? I want to see that when we, there's just so many things that I want to see carry over against the kind of talent we're going to continue to see all year long. Against, we're not going to see Bahamas professional basketball team, and that's not even the national team. That's the professional team. We're not going to see Young Harris teams like that all year long. So it will be a test next week. It's less than a week. Or no, we've got Spalding, and then a week after that.
Spalding, and then a week.
A week after that. Less than 2 weeks. We're less than 2 weeks away.
Don't give the people false hope.
Yeah, I can't give them false hope. Don't want to do that. But, yeah, Jake, we only allowed 5 free throws all game. We did a great job of defending without fouling, aside from the couple times that
other way around. Right? Didn't we? We only shot 5 free throws, right?
Oh,
yeah.
But I don't know why I said. I didn't mean to word that like that. We only shot 5 free throws because we weren't shooting any 2s. But I do think that I don't think they shot very many free throws either.
They shot 19. So not a crazy amount, but I mean, like you said,
not a normal. That's just a normal amount, though.
That's the offense they were trying to run. It was get one man isolated and just drive to the basket. Like that's what they
Yeah.
wanted to do on every possession. And that they said it multiple times in the broadcast that I don't remember what the number was, but it was an insane number. Like one of the dudes shot like 200 free throws last season. They led D2 in free throw attempts all year. So I mean, to hold them to 19 is not something that is an issue by far.
Yeah, you're totally right. You're totally right. Anything else you want to touch on? Anything else you saw? Any feelings you're feeling? How are you feeling? You feeling confident about what you think this team is and what they're going to be able to be this season, based on this
Say
performance, based on this Young Harris performance so far?
say it one more time. Sorry, it popped up lost connection, and so all I heard was how are you feeling? Sorry.
I was just saying. So is there anything else you've got to critique on? Any other points you want to make about this Young Harris performance, and how are you still feeling about this team after this performance? Are you still confident that they're going to be able to be what you think they are?
Yeah, I am still confident. I grow ever more confidently with every game that we continue to see this type of play. I think that we have all of the makings of what is required to be a good college basketball team now, and a team that can succeed in March with the experience, with the balance, with the ability to play with anyone, with how well we can
Yeah.
shoot. And obviously the step up in competition. If it doesn't translate, then shit, I was wrong. But from everything I've seen, it seems like it should.
Yeah.
Last
It may
thing,
take time, but
yeah, last thing, I just the ball movement. I mean, it's just so night and day from last season. Was it? I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 guys had 2 or more assists, and then Chucky and Corin Johnson both had 7 assists, only 1 turnover. Did I hold up? Did I say that right?
yeah, that was right.
Okay, just making sure I didn't say that like 6 dudes had 7 assists there. Yeah,
No, yeah, you said it right.
yeah. I just
Had 2 plus assists.
it's
Yeah.
just yeah, it's just so refreshing to see. I'm excited. I don't think Spalding will be much more of a test than Young Harris was. They were 15 and 12 last year, 12 and 6 in their conference. I can't imagine they would be much better. I can't sit here and lie and say that I have scouted Spalding's men's basketball team at all. But you actually might know a little bit more than me.
No, I mean I've looked into them a little bit, but I don't. I didn't watch any highlights from last season. I just looked at the statistical stuff and how they matched up against in their conference, and I don't see them. They'll shoot more threes, I think, than Young Harris did, but that's about it. They're not going to be. There's not a whole lot of high level scores on that team, so I
Yeah,
think we
I'm
should be all
looking.
right.
They played Miami University last year, which is a D1 team. They lost 82 to 43. They played IUPUI, which is a D1 team. They actually only lost by 7, 70 to 63. Looks like those are the only 2 D1 teams they played. So yeah, I can't imagine that. Hope we continue to see what we saw in these last few exhibitions.
Definitely, definitely. Well, I think that'll really wrap up how we're feeling about this performance against Young Harris. Like I said, we'll have Monday night. This coming Monday, we'll have Spalding coming across town or down the street, really, to Yum Center. And it's not going to be much different, I don't believe. You just want to see these things carry over again. You want to see the turnovers stay down like that. I do want to see. I think there'll be a couple big, like Spalding has a couple big guys on the team. They're not very many, but a couple. I just want to see, if they do run us off the 3-point line more often than Young Harris. I mean, Young Harris didn't hardly try to at all. If they do run us off the 3-point
They were
line,
happy to see us shoot.
I want to see us respond to that at the same level that we did in the Bahamas, right? And yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited, Jake. It's a new age for Louisville basketball in the Pat Kelsey era.
We don't lose
But
exhibitions anymore.
we don't lose exhibitions. We scored 100 in every game so far. But I do want to take a moment here and address one of our sponsors here. Jake, do you think Reyne Smith will score more than 12 and a half points this week?
He only needs 5 threes. He does that in his sleep.
I think Reyne will score more than 12.5 points this coming week. But why don't you put your money where your mouth is? That's what our team has been doing at Underdog Fantasy. We are busy guys, and that's why we like the simplicity of the Underdog Fantasy app. You could win up to 1,000 times your money just by choosing higher or lower on player stats like points, blocks, steals, and much, much more. Underdog is the best place to pick them. So sign up and deposit now using promo code STARTING5 to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. Again, that's STARTING5, all one word, starting FIVE. You must be 18 plus and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. Yes, Jake, Underdog Fantasy, we need to get you on Underdog. We're going to send you a code. Starting 5 promo code for the Underdog Fantasy. If you guys are interested, you'll get up to $1,000. It's one of the new pick'em apps where you get to pick over under on the players' stat lines. I love it. It's fun. You can win up to 1,000 times your money, which is absolutely outrageous. Yeah, so starting 5 promo code, we'll get that to you guys. Jake, I want to jump into our player breakdowns that we've been doing. We're without Presley on this, so it kind of makes me, feel a little bit weird to continue on. We like getting his breakdown on these guys as well. But Press, he's missing out. So we're going to have to continue on, hold steady with the ship, and we're going to continue these 3 players. Who we getting into today, Jake?
We're going to go with Aboubacar, Kader, Traore. I love the name of Aboubacar. I wish we could call him that, but it sounds like he prefers to go by Kader. So
Is it Kader? Cater? It's not Cater, right? It's Kader.
I am honestly not sure. I've only seen it written that he prefers that. I haven't heard it said yet, I don't think.
I think it is Cater.
Cater?
Cater.
Like I'm gonna cater a meal.
Yeah, like Toe Mater, except Cater, but it does have a D.
Yeah, so we got Kader Traore, Reyne Smith, and then Javon Hadley. You want to start off with Kader?
Let's go ahead. Let's go right into it.
I mean, I think a lot of people have heard a pretty decent amount about him. He was one of the more, say, like top 5 most talked about transfers that we ended up getting, at least in my mind. And I think it all comes down to just the versatility in his game. Like, you read his stat line, and it doesn't look like a college stat line. Like, these are numbers you might see in the NBA. They're not numbers you see in the NBA. 12 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, 1.5 steals, 1.4 blocks. Like, that's so well-rounded. That's crazy to me. This man is just, versatile is 100% the best way to describe his game. Plays like an undersized 3-4. Yeah. 6'5", but plays the 3-4. Playmaker, defender, rim runner, cutter. Besides the fact that he can't shoot a fucking lick, or at least was not able to last year, I heard him talking about during the game that he's shooting a little bit more in practice, and he did shoot a 3 in the exhibition. Granted, that ball did not touch the rim. But this man just does it all outside of being able to shoot threes.
Yeah. Probably the most unorthodox transfer we brought in. Probably one of the more unorthodox players in the country, if I'm just being honest. There aren't very many guys who command having the ball in their hand enough because of their playmaking ability and their unselfishness, who aren't usually like high-level shooters or usually guards. They're normally just, guards. What players do you know averaging 4.5 assists and are having multiple nights with triple-double, double-double watches going on? There's not very many guys at his play style. There's not very many guys at his play style at all. There's not many guys in his position playing his role on the court who's capable of that. Super unorthodox, but he shot 9% from 3 last year at Long Beach State. He did, on the other hand, average 1.5 steals and 1.4 blocks. He is active defensively. He's everywhere. He has great timing. He's just strong. He's a super strong player as well. He has a great center of gravity, which I'm getting really deep into his detail now. But he's low defensively in his defensive stance every time. He's not letting you blow by him. He's a hard rebounder. He goes to pretty much after every rebound that he can. Why he averaged 8.4 last year and had multiple games last year with double-digit rebounds. He's versatile is the only way you really can put it. You can't even really go into many more ways to kind of go about describing him. The three-point shooting, it's not normal for a Pat Kelsey system player. I don't think there's very many players in his system that you're going to see ever who don't have the ability to shoot at all, like we thought Cater didn't have coming in, right, with the 9% and not very many attempts last year at all. But what he brings to you with his unselfishness and his high basketball IQ on offense, it makes up for it. It really, really does. I'm obviously going a lot more on the highlights I watched of him last year, and just in the little bit we got to see in the Bahamas and so far against Young Harris. But he is going to be a very, very useful player for Pat Kelsey because of how interchangeable he's going to be with pretty much every lineup.
Yeah,
He can play.
I think that you're right. It is odd to see a guy who just straight can't shoot at all to be recruited by Pat Kelsey. But I think this team, with his, like you said, his ability to defend, his ability to pass, his ability to really do everything but that, where you can get one of those guys on the floor at a time and it'd be fine. Now, if we had two or three, I don't think it would work in a Pat Kelsey system.
Yeah, no.
But one is fine.
Yeah, when you've got Noah Waterman and Case and Pryor out there, two of your bigs who can both stretch the floor and be out on the perimeter, having the Cater in that dunker spot, he's going to show you value there. And he's going to prove to be a valuable player for a lot of different matchups this year. He's going to have certain matchups where it is elite level teams are going to defend us like Young Harris did, and because he doesn't have a shooting, he's not going to be able to see very many minutes on that court. But then you're going to have the games where it's super athletic transition teams who are trying to get to the basket as much as they can. He's going to prove very valuable to have on the roster. And he just knows where to make the extra pass. I feel like he always knows where the extra pass should be. There's a couple different – he's kind of crafty with his passing too. He'll get to a spot in the lane and make a pass to a corner that you didn't think he had based on his body positioning, right? Just a super smart player. I'm glad to have him. I think he's going to always be that guy that has a smile on his face too as well. He's going to be that spark of energy off the bench or starting where he's going to get the crowd up. He's going to get the bench up because if he's diving after the ball, he's getting the jump balls. He's going to be all that. And kind of like a Swiss Army knife on defense. So it's super valuable. I'm glad to have him. Is there anything else about him that we pretty much are like, there's not really much we're glossing over, I don't think, right?
Yeah, I think the only thing I wanted to add is just maybe to like contextualize this player a little bit more for people that haven't gotten to watch an exhibition. But if you're listening to us, you probably have, or you just haven't seen enough of him. To me, he reminds me of a young Pascal Siakam. Obviously, Pascal now is a lot more skilled, can shoot the mid-range a lot, shoots threes. But just the impact that Pascal is able to have by getting to the basket, cutting, playing good defense, rebounding, doing all of those things. So
being able to put the ball on the floor and get to the basket if he needs to.
Yeah, so if you've seen Pascal Siakam play, I think that's the closest player comp. Him and James Scott are like vying for who can shoot more shots like right at the rim. He shot 84% of his shots at the rim. So you know what you're getting in him. I'm curious. I think the corner three, if he could add a 30%, 33% corner three shot, I think that it could do wonders for his game and wonders for the spacing on the floor, because eventually 5-10 games into the season, teams are going to realize like, oh, damn, he doesn't shoot. We can lay off of him. But if he's able to sit in that corner and knock down open threes when the ball gets swung to him, that changes everything. So that's one thing I hope that we can see.
Yeah, he shot 66% from the free throw line last year, which is, how do you put that? Right above terrible. Mm-hmm. And he's the kind of guy, if he likes his matchup, he will get to the rim. He can put the ball on the floor. He can dribble. He's a good ball handler. So I do fear that he will not maybe be a great free throw shooter. That's just not something that at that age, you kind of know the free throw shooter they are. There's not, unless you have an innovative free throw shooting coach and who can help change things, right? It's not going to get any better. That is another thing. So that's another factor that you can't really rely on him. So I do worry that he will close games at the end of the game where you want him on the court defensively. You may not be able to take the risk because you can sag off of him offensively potentially later on in the season if he hasn't shown to be able to have that corner three, or you can't rely on him as a free throw shooter. But Knock on wood. Better. Hasn't happened yet. That's just something to look out for when the season does get up and rolling. But he's shooting more threes in practice, so it could get better. I think it should and could, right?
Yeah, I like that I like that he shot one in the exhibition. I hate that it missed the rim entirely. But I mean that's part of it. When you're a bad shooter, I mean, like you remember like Ben Simmons just borderline had yips. You'd see videos of him in practice just fucking stroking that thing, and you're like, who is this? And then he goes like 102 NBA games without making a three. So in these exhibition games, in these early preseason games that aren't as consequential and aren't as competitive, I would love to see him get up one or two a game, just to build the confidence, see a couple go in. That way, when it is a big moment and he has an open three, he's got that mental thought like, I can't hit this. There's no question in his head. Like he's seen it go in, he's done it in the game. That's the only thing. But we can switch to basically the complete opposite player in Reyne Smith if you'd like. This
Yeah,
man has
let's go right into it.
no trouble shooting threes.
He deserves it after that performance. Reyne Smith. So Reyne is he's the first transfer, I believe. No. Yeah, Reyne was the first player that Pat Kelsey brought from Charleston. He's the Australian player, lefty, shooter, if you haven't seen him yet. But like Jake said, if you're listening to us, you should probably know who Reyne Smith is. I'd be surprised if you didn't. But he's been a double-digit scorer and a three-point specialist, for 2 straight years. He's very in tune with the Pat Kelsey system. He's a scrappy player, too. He's not just some slouch defensively. He's a great passer, high basketball IQ, high motor. He's going to run. He's going to fill his lane. He's going to be, one of those guys that is not fun to guard when he does not have the ball on offense as well. Kind of like I hate to even put him in the same phrase, but the way Steph Curry operates without the basketball, Reyne has that same kind of philosophy for his own game. And he just helps you space the floor out at all times. He's going to be a very valuable player for us, but I want to let you get into some of those details about him.
Yeah, I mean, Reyne Smith is just the one of the most impressive college basketball shooters I've seen in a long time. I mean, shooting 40% on 8 attempts a game is just
people don't
shit.
understand that.
You don't see that in college. You do not see that in college basketball.
Very high volume. That is a very, very, very high volume shooter right there. 8 attempts a game and at 40%, that's elite. It's elite.
Yeah, I mean, he is truly easiest player comp to me is obviously Ryan McMahon, but I think he's Ryan McMahon plus. He's a little bit bigger. He's a little bit thicker. He's a little bit better of a defender. He's a little bit better of a playmaker. He's basically Ryan McMahon.
A little bit craftier with the basketball.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Buff all his other stats by 5, 10. I mean, 3-point specialist is the name of his game. It's the reason that he's a D1 basketball player. His ability to move off the ball is super impressive. You talked about that. His release is so quick. He's just one of those dudes that once he has the ball in his hand, if you're not in his face when that ball is caught, he can and most likely will shoot.
It's up.
And I saw it in the exhibition earlier in the week. It was as a baseline out of bounds play, and they ran a couple off ball screens, and then he came off a curl into the corner and just kind of like caught it in the shooting pocket and like just in a fluid motion, just fade away, just wet. And like the ability to shoot out of frame, and it doesn't have to be right here, Klay Thompson, like just right there in that shooting pocket and shooting, is something that I think will be appreciated, but will be huge, especially in these tougher games. You kind of think about who was the Oakland player? I can't think of his name that went crazy. Jack Golke, like that dude. I mean, he was shooting from every angle that you could possibly imagine. So I think that's something that's underappreciated in his game.
Similar kind of situation too. Jack Golke was not playing for an Oakland kind of a team the year before. Mm-hmm. Some D2 or I believe, or maybe even D3, but he was shooting some 42% or something like that. Got the chance. Proved he can do it at the highest level. When you have that, what you just said, that ability to, at any angle, adjusted arm angles other than what your set shot is, to still not lose a beat in your confidence and your ability to shoot the ball, that's when you're in that S tier level of shooters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I 100%. And I think the 3-point Shooting gets a lot of love, but you are correct that he is a well-rounded basketball player. I think that obviously three-point shooting is his only elite skill. I think he is a good ball handler. I wouldn't call him a good playmaker, but he makes the right plays with the ball. Like you're not going to
Secure
see him.
playmaker.
Yeah, like he's not Chucky Hepburn. He's not Corin Johnson.
Yeah.
He's not going to get into the lane a ton and facilitate, get 5, 6, 7 assists.
No, but if you roll right off the roll, if you pick and roll, if you roll right and
Mm-hmm.
the defense gives it to you, he's going to find the roller or he's going to find the pick and pop guy. He does have the basic level point guard passes that you need for sure. Not the basic ones, but the point guard level passes that you want your point guard to be able to make. He has those. Even though he's more of a shooting guard kind of a mindset of a player, he can make those kind of passes as the primary ball handler. He's just not going to go out there and find dimes and find lobs on every single time he gets into the lane. But you saw the lobs in the Bahamas.
Mm-hmm.
So you worded it perfectly. He's not necessarily some advanced playmaker, but he knows where the right play usually is every time he has the ball in his hand.
Yeah, better than 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, which is awesome to see from an off ball guard. Obviously, he can play a little bit of point, but I think on this team, he'll primarily be off ball. So to get a 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio from your shooting guard is incredible. Trust that he's always going to make the right play, that skip pass, that extra pass, the one dribble, lob, whatever it is. I think he can do that. Defensively, I'd call him above average. If there is a liability in his game, I think it will be defensively. I think that he's not a Corin Johnson, Chucky Hepburn, get in your face, force turnovers, be super physical, but he's able to stay in front of dudes and play defense in an intelligent way to where he doesn't take too many risks and doesn't put
He stays
himself
in.
out of position too much. So an above average defender, but the size, it does limit him, especially if he is going to be on the floor with a Corin Johnson, with a Chucky Hepburn, and he is playing or guarding twos, and you've got, like a 6'4", 6'5", 2 guard from North Carolina. That's not an ideal matchup for him defensively. So I think if there is any knock or any concern in how his game translates to Louisville, it would be more on the defensive side just because of his build and his frame and less because of what he's able to do.
Yeah, and that him being around more athletic and bigger athletes.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it's not going to be the same kind of teams you were getting at Charleston. This is the ACC, a little bit different. And there's going to be some games where you can't put him out there defensively. You just can't. You can't run the risk because it'll be a matchup problem for some teams.
I think final thing with Reyne, and most of what I'm talking about now has probably already happened, but I think it's huge that Pat was able to get him in early and just get him in with this team, because getting 13 brand new guys it's less unheard of now because of the transfer portal, but that is fucking insane to get 13 brand new guys and get them to buy in and get them to assimilate the way that it seems like they have. And I think a guy like Reyne Smith makes that so much more possible. And even James Scott, Reyne just a little bit more because he's been in the system longer. But just his ability to almost be a coach on the court and understand the offense and understand what is wanted out of the players that are on the court with him, I think is something that has been huge and will continue to be huge as the season goes on.
Definitely. You can see it. The coaches, Pat Kelsey, they rely on him and they're confident in him. They're very confident in what Reyne brings to the table for them. And I really think that's pretty much. That was the last point there that I was going to make, and you nailed it for us. He is like that second extended coach on the court. He knows the system like the back of his hand. He knows where everybody's supposed to be, and he's going to help guide his teammates into being an even more cohesive unit than we already are, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Lastly, is there one more point you wanted to make?
You are all good. I'm ready to talk about one of my favorite players.
Lastly, we've got who I think will be the player who plays with the most different lineups. He'll play with all of the players on the team the most. This is Javon Hadley, our Swiss Army knife, Jake.
Mm-hmm.
What are your first things that come to mind when you think about Javon Hadley?
Similar, I guess you could describe them not in the way that they play, but what they bring to the table to Cater, getting that right, pronunciation right, Traore, and just the versatility of his game. But but he's my favorite player because he is able to do so much that goes unnoticed, that may not be seen in a box score, and doesn't require the ball, and yet can have such an impact on the game. Average 11 points, 6 rebounds, 2.5 assists on a really good Colorado team last year. Shot 40% from three, not on a high volume like Reyne Smith, only 1.3 attempts per game. But I mean, man, just you watch his game and he doesn't make the wrong decision. That's the one thing
Never.
that I noticed. Like, he's in the right spot defensively, offensively. He's not forcing it. He's taking open looks. He's swinging the ball when it needs to be swung. I don't know if that's right, but just experience in his game, leadership, a maturity that you don't always see in college basketball. I love his game, the versatility, a jack of all trades kind of guy. He's my top 2 favorite player on this team so far.
Yeah. He doesn't do anything. He's not bad at anything. He's one of the few players on the team that is actively, it seems like, above average at everything. He's a great rebounder for his size. He makes the smart pass. He makes the extra pass. He knows where he's supposed to be on the court pretty much at all times. And he's very in tune already with Pat Kelsey in these sets and how this offense wants to operate. This is a player, though, he spent time at Colorado. He's played high-level basketball already. He's seen a lot of different things. He will be a player that defensively is going to be super big for us. He can switch probably 1 through 4, I want to say. 5, depending on what your 5 looks like. He's strong. He's no slouch. He slides his feet. I don't think I've seen a player beat him yet off the dribble. We haven't played a lot of great ball handling talent yet, but I don't think I've seen any player get by him yet. And then, yeah, he's just one of those guys that if he can pretty much carry over everything that we've seen from him last year as a player in Colorado, if we can see that, if he brings that to the table again this year, and he stays with that unselfish, buys into what is going on kind of a mindset, he's going to be one of our most valuable players this year. Very. Jack of all trades. A lot of people like the Dwayne Sutton comparison. And while I get it, because Wayne was a good defender, Wayne could put the ball on the floor when he wanted to. He could shoot. He could shoot the mid-range if he had to. Good free throw shooter. Gonna die for every 50-50 loose ball that there is kind of a guy. And just super unselfish and bought into what's going on kind of a guy. I get that. And he is all of that. And that is probably a great comparison. But Javon Hadley, anything that Dwayne Sutton could do good offensively, Javon Hadley's about a tier better. Much, much better ball handler, craftier ball handler. And Dwayne Sutton was a good ball handler. Javon Hadley can make his defender fall. He will cross you if you try to be too loose on him as a defender. He can shoot. He can create his own shot. He's crafty around the rim. He's got a soft touch. He can do just about all of it. And I looked into a couple of his higher scoring performances last year. The only reason he averaged 11.6 points is because he was the third option, and the fourth option on some games. Which it's probably going to be what he is here. Maybe, he'll have nights where he is maybe the second or first option, or he's the one that's getting open the most from three, right? There's going to be some of those kind of nights, but you just need him to be bought into being that unsung hero. And I think he will be able to be that for us.
Yeah, I think he's I hate that he's a senior. I wish he was here longer.
Gosh, if we could get him one more year in the Pat Kelsey system, he'd be scary next year.
Yeah, I think that
he could be scary this year, though.
Yeah, he's the type of player that I think Pat is perfect for Pat Kelsey's system. Unselfish, able to do the little things, good shooter. He truly checks all the boxes, ball handler, because Pat Kelsey wants shooting. He wants unselfishness. He wants versatility. And those are the three biggest things that Javon Hadley brings to the team. I know whenever he left Colorado, their head coach, Tad Boyle, was effusive in his praise of Javon Hadley, essentially describing him as the most important player on the Colorado team that had 2 or 3 NBA draft picks.
2 for sure.
Yeah, 2 for sure. I think. Yeah. But just, yeah, I mean, I can't say enough about him. I think that you'll see him on the floor a ton. Well, they had what's his name's brother, the Thunder player's
Jalen Williams
brother.
kid, yeah, the Thunder Jalen Williams brother, J Dub's brother, and then the kid that was potentially in talks with the one who had the I forgot his name. He was their senior last year, or I thought he might have 1 year more year of eligibility though. So he was talking about being in the transfer portal. It was portal or NBA. That was the conversation for him. I thought he went to the NBA.
Tristan Da Silva. Yeah.
De Silva, and he went to the NBA.
Yeah. He got drafted 18th. So yeah,
Yeah.
they had 2. Oh no, they had 3.
Yeah.
They did have 3. They had KJ Simpson too. They had KJ Simpson.
And is Simpson the one that was scoring all the points in the NCAA in the tournament, wasn't he?
Yes. Yeah.
He was like the undersized power forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think
Yes.
he went either late or went undrafted or something.
Yeah, he went late. I think, in like the 40s. So yeah,
And
3
Javon
NBA
Hadley,
players.
Javon Hadley was the coach's most important player. So that's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge. I think he would have gotten more draft stock last year if he would have gotten utilized a little bit more offensively on a team that was an NCAA tournament team. But instead, we got him, and I'm excited for it. I think he will be. I hate to say it this early, but I think it's at the moment. I think he's my pick for most important player. I think our coach will feel the exact same way that Colorado coach did at the end of the year.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think he will be too. The maturity of which he plays is just super impressive, and it sticks out whenever you watch him. The one thing I will say, because we've shown the pros and the cons for both. If there's a con to Javon Hadley's game, he's not an elite athlete. Like, you will not watch him play and be like, that's a first-round NBA talent. He could make the NBA just because he's so versatile and skilled.
Yeah,
but
and his fundamentals are so sound that he does make up for it. But you're right. He's not going to jump you out of the gym. He's not going to be the fastest player down the court. But he's laterally quick, right? He does have his lateral quickness, which he wouldn't be the level of defender he is if he didn't. That's one of those things, right? He's quick. He's not super, super fast, but he is quick. He doesn't have the highest vertical on the team, but he's going to be one of the quickest off the floor. He's got that quick athleticism and not that, real strong athleticism. But that's okay. That's okay. You're right, though. While he does, he can switch a lot. He'll switch stuff and it'll be a miss. Like he'll go try to switch onto some fours. Like Javon Hadley cannot guard Cooper Flag. You know what I mean? Things like that. That's going to be a switch you don't want. But that's all right. Not a lot of people are going to be able to guard Cooper Flag.
I was about to say, I don't know who can guard Cooper Flag. I'm super excited to watch him play. But yeah, I think that I think Javon will be the most important player. Not every night, obviously, and honestly, I think that when you watch him play, most people wouldn't say, "Wow, Javon Hadley's the reason we won that game," because he only scored 9 points and he had 6 rebounds and he had 3 assists and he had a steal and a block. But I think that he'll be top 3 most important player on this team, and the stats probably won't bear that out.
It'll be hard to be more important than Chucky Hepburn, but I think exactly, like, he'll be top 3 and he'll have a lot of games where he is the most important, and then he'll have a lot of games where only the real critiquers of every single player on Louisville's roster, kind of basketball heads, are going to realize the non-box score stuff. He has by far the most pass deflections. He's switched onto the most defenders. He's the most switchable player we've got. He was the player, outlet, most hockey assists kind of a guy, right? All that kind of stuff. You're going to see it. You're going to see it every game. And I'm super excited. I'm super excited to see. I think his versatility is going to be on display. And you're going to see him with a lot of different lineups. You're going to see him play different roles with different lineups. He's going to have roles where he doesn't shoot. And he's going to have roles where he's creating off the dribble, within Pat Kelsey's offense.
My favorite players are the players that you can watch them impact a game without scoring. Those are always my favorite players. And Javon Hadley is that. He is the guy that will get 2 steals, will get 1 block, will get 4 assists, will get 3 other pass to assist, and will put up 8 points. And will not have taken a bad shot all game.
Screener. He's a very underrated screener too.
I was curious.
Sets great screens.
Who is your, now that we've gotten past the breakdowns, who do you expect right now to be your favorite player on this team?
The funniest thing about this is that before the season started, I thought this player was going to be my least favorite. I thought he was going to be the hardest player to mentally buy into the Pat Kelsey system. And this could still end up being true. But at the moment, I don't feel this way anymore. And at the moment, I feel like this player is going to be my favorite, and it's Koren Johnson. Mm-hmm. I think Koren Johnson is our craftiest player. I think he has the potential to get when people heat up and get hot, I think Corn will be the hottest when that happens. It might be Reyne because when shooters get in that real one mode, like like you've told me you've got that kind of you get into that mode, you're not going to miss. I already know that about you, Jake. You don't have to tell me. But Reyne will have games where he hits 6, 7 threes, 8 threes, and he has a couple moments within the game where he hit 3 or 4 in a row at a time, right? I think Corn will as well, and those will be threes off the dribble. It'll be mid-range pull-ups. It'll be him getting to the basket. He will have full-on increments of games where he just completely takes over and he's unguardable. And I'm slowly starting to see that he has a higher basketball IQ than I thought off the ball, and his willingness to pass the ball is higher than I thought. So those are the two things that I was worrisome of. I thought he was just going to be a stand, bend over on his knees, and wait for the ball to come to him on offense kind of a guy when he doesn't have it. Worried about him, just wanting to score and get his NIL check and get up out of here kind of a thing, that he was going to be the one player who I thought personality might point to that, and then play style as well. I'm so far I'm very, very wrong, and I'm very glad to be. And he's my favorite at the moment. I can't wait to watch him next Monday.
You
What about you?
You stole mine. That was mine. I've had a unacceptable hard on for Corin Johnson since I first watched his game at Washington.
It's acceptable, Jake. It's acceptable.
Thank you. I can't stand up right now, or else I'd probably get us banned off YouTube. We haven't broke him down yet, so I don't want to go too hard into him because that'll probably come.
He'll be on the
next
next one. Yeah, he'll be on the next one.
But God, man, he is just such an impressive scorer and facilitator so naturally. Just like kind of like the way Ty Lore was last year. Yeah, kind of the way Ty Lore was. You just kind of see in his game. Now, granted, Ty Lore was insanity and I think did meth on the sideline to keep that energy level up. So he doesn't play like that, but that kind of just hooper that just can score in any way, can
and
impact the game offensively.
He just adapts to whatever is happening in front of him on the basketball court. And he keeps his dribble alive while it's all happening. I love that. I love a guard who can keep their dribble alive while things are still figuring themselves out.
Yeah, he's super impressive. And I think we saw last game against Young Harris, he didn't shoot very well. I think he was, what was he? I'm trying to see where we at here. He was 3 of 8, only scored 8 points, but had 7 assists, had 3 steals, only had 1 turnover.
And those 8 points were pretty. Those were a pretty 8 points. It wasn't an efficient 8, but it was a pretty 8.
Yeah. And so I think that was my only concern when I watched his game at Washington, was that he had an ability to score, but would sometimes outshoot. And if he wasn't shooting and scoring well, he wasn't making much of an impact on the game. But from this game, from the exhibitions in the Bahamas, and maybe it's just the play style of this team, but I mean, he's just able to impact it as a playmaker just as well as Chucky Hepburn can. Not as good of a defender, but on the offensive side, I think he's better than Chucky. So I love his game. We'll talk more about him next week, but I was just curious to see. I'm glad we're on the same page there. I am. If I'm getting a jersey this year, it's a Corin Johnson jersey.
I like that. I would probably go Kanai.
Oh yeah, you get it for 4 years, maybe. Probably not.
Yeah, just because I'd love to be able to wear it 2 years in a row. And I have a feeling he'll end the season as my favorite. But we got a long season ahead of us, Jake. A lot of different. We might feel differently every week. I might have a new favorite player every single week. I don't know yet. We'll just have to see.
I'll follow up next podcast.
This has been a good episode. This has been Starting 502 with Roman Kelly and Jake Cook with no Presley Myers. It's okay. He'll be back for the next one. Don't fret. Press will be back. But Jake, if there's anything else that you want to get at, approach, talk about, I think that we've pretty much nailed everything we can about these players. We need a lot more basketball games with them playing together to know a lot more, to feel any differently, really. We've only got what we've seen so far. So we just got to keep getting, the season starting. We've got another exhibition Monday. We've got Spalding coming Monday. You've got Morehead State after that, a week, 7 days after that. And then you got Tennessee that Saturday. And I know this is, we're talking about November and it's still October, but it's going to be here before we know it. It's going to be here before we know it. The Young Harris, I remember just a couple weeks ago, Young Harris felt like it was it's so far away. And now we're waiting on Spalding. So, Jake, any final points? Anything else Anything else we want to break down here?
No, I'm just so pumped. It's basketball season. It's a great time. I love Louisville football. I just love Louisville basketball a little bit more. And this season is coming at the perfect time as we start to see our football season. I'll still follow every game. I'll still watch every game, but just crumble a little bit and lose hope
Yeah.
there. Our
The
hopes and
expectation just
dreams
shifted massively.
will
Yes.
expand in basketball as they decline in football. So, God, I'm so excited.
It's that time of year, Jake. It's that time of year. I'm excited as well. But that's going to wrap it up for us. This has been Starting 502 Podcast. Roman Kelly, Jake Hook. We'll see you guys on the next one.
Go Cards.